Hi everyone and welcome to this GIE author interview series. My name is Petr Vanek and I am currently a GI fellow based in the Czech Republic at the University Hospital Olomouc, Department of Gastroenterology, and at the same time a clinical researcher and a PhD student at the Palacký University, also here in Olomouc, Czech Republic. On behalf of all co-authors, I am very happy to discuss with you our recently published article in Gastrointestinal Endoscopy entitled Endoscopic Ultrasound-Guided Transluminal Drainage Using Lumen-Apposing Metal Stents with or without coaxial plastic stent for treatment of wall of necrotizing pancreatitis, a prospective bicentric randomized controlled trial. First of all, I'd like to thank the journal editors for accepting our manuscript and for giving us the opportunity to share it with you. As you could already see, we focused on endoscopic drainage of vault of necrosis using lumen-apposing metal stents with or without plastic stents. For those of you who are not that familiar with such a topic, I would like to show the general principle of LAMS utilization in the management of pancreatic and peripancreatic collections. This illustration demonstrates the LAMS placed through the stomach into a necrotic collection, opposing the cavity wall with the gastrointestinal wall to allow effective drainage and evacuation of necrotic contents. The endoscopically centered approach in vault of necrosis has evolved substantially with the introduction of LAMS. Recent meta-analyses and systematic reviews have confirmed high technical and clinical success rates of transluminal drainage using LAMS, although its safety has raised important concerns. Non-negligible rates of adverse events, including bleeding, stent occlusion, stent migration, and buried stent syndrome, have been reported. Specifically, it has been postulated that LAMS, by virtue of its rigidity and immobility, impinges on the vasculature in the collapsed wall of the necrotic cavity, leading to subsequent bleeding. Inserting a double pigtail plastic stent through the LAMS has been proposed to prevent LAMS-related adverse events by improving its patency, anchoring it in the original position, providing space around its distal end, and limiting its impaction on the adjacent vessels. Even though many endoscopists have adopted this approach intuitively, outcome data to support this measure had been sparse, prospective data remained absent, and the matter had been discussed and questioned at the latest scientific meetings. Moreover, available retrospective data showed conflicting results, came from heterogeneous cohorts, and included different types of collections and different sizes and rigidity of coaxial plastic stents. For all these reasons, we decided to evaluate the utility of such measures prospectively with controlled design and predefined composite endpoints. This flowchart illustrates the sequence of the trial. Patients with vault of necrosis indicated for drainage were randomly assigned to EUS-guided drainage using LAMS with or without coaxial plastic stent at 2 centers in the Czech Republic. Main outcomes included failure of the index method, which was defined as the necessity of endoscopic, percutaneous or surgical reintervention before planned LAMS extraction, mortality, and adverse events. Specifically, we hypothesized that there was no difference in the rate of index method failure or incidence of adverse events when using LAMS with or without double pigtail plastic stent. Now, I would like to point out that the term index method failure is not a standard concept and should not be mistaken for treatment failure. To the best of our knowledge, it is the first prospective study with a randomized controlled design and predefined endpoints to evaluate the utility of such measures to date. The main result was that the addition of a coaxial plastic stent was associated with a significantly lower global rate of adverse events and stent occlusion rate, which is in line with the idea that a plastic stent may prevent lamb's obstruction by ensuring its patency. The configuration and material of the plastic stents that we used could also in part explain the positive effect found in our study. Many centers utilize soft polyurethane double pigtail plastic stents which tend to collapse and allow one edge of the lamps to erode into the back wall of a collapsed cavity. We used conventional polyethylene stents which maintain a fairly large and rigid pigtail that might be more effective in pushing away the back wall of the cavity or perhaps spontaneous outward migration. In regard to index method failure, the rate was favorable for coaxially placed double pigtail plastic stent, and the same applied to the mortality rate, which was also lower in patients with coaxial plastic stent. Even though the differences in these measures did not achieve statistical significance, the results were still relevant. Moreover, the only 3 reported fatal adverse events were all lamps-related bleedings occurring in the lamps alone group. Overall, our study adds an important message to the lamps-related literature. A coaxially placed plastic stent through the lamps appears to be safer than lamps alone, as it could help to decrease the rates of adverse events. Our findings reinforce the assumption of the protective role of double pigtail plastic stents in regards to lamps obstruction. However, more prospective studies are needed to validate the results, which we look forward to. Lamps-related adverse events with the recent rise of endoscopic utilization of these endoprostheses are a valid concern warranting investigation of potential preventive measures. We hope that the results of our study will raise awareness of this precautionary technique among endoscopists and perhaps contribute to appropriate decision-making in the management of patients with wall-of necrosis requiring endoscopic drainage. I thank you for listening.